Hey, everybody. This is Dr. Sally, and this is Headspace for the Workplace. It's a podcast on how to cultivate vibrant and psychologically safe and healthy workplaces. And I get the privilege of interviewing incredible thought leaders in this space, and today is no exception. We're going to be talking about the anxious achiever at work and really rethinking the relationship between your mental health and success. And when I heard Morra speak about this at a Google sponsored event, several months ago, my bells were ringing because I was like, oh, she's talking to my heart. As many of you know, I posted many years ago a blog about, man, I think I'm on the bipolar spectrum. And, as someone who's a psychologist, you'd think I would have come up with that aha earlier in my life. But I really didn't until after I experienced an episode of depression in 2012. And I've come to really embrace it because I do feel like most of my gifts lie in the lower ends of hypomania. I have pretty much daily episodes of euphoria, huge bursts of productivity, lots of gifts in that space that I think really define who I am. But I've also really have come to respect that my energy burns people out and that I really need to take responsibility for protecting those gifts and my relationships. So that's where we're headed today. And with me, I have Morra Aarons-Mele, and I'm so excited to have you on my podcast. Morra, say hi.
Hi, Sally. I feel like you're speaking my language. My gosh.
I know. I think we were destined to meet. Very, very exciting. So what are the two things that our listeners are going to walk away with today on today's podcast?
They are going to walk away knowing, or they probably already know this, so affirming that anxiety is part of leadership. It comes with the job. And they're also going to learn and affirm that, learning how to manage difficult emotions, what we often call negative emotions, is actually a strategic weapon in your
Dun,
career.
dun, 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 dun. Yes. And I love the title. I think it was one of your earlier books of Hiding Out in the Bathroom.
Hiding in the bathroom. Yep.
I don't think there's a leader alive who has not hidden somewhere to try to manage difficult emotions, whether it's, massive disappointment or fear, or anxiety or whatever, whether it's your car or your bathroom or your closet, like we've all done it. We've all done it. So tell us a little bit more about you, Morra. What do you do every day?
So I have the greatest job in the world. Every day I basically write and think and do research and interview amazing people like you and host a podcast. And that sort of fulfills the really nerdy, curious, seeking part of my brain and a lot of my creativity. And then the other half of my day I spend working with clients. And that is incredible because it makes me feel like I'm part of a community and I'm not lonely, right? And it's really wonderful, although, of course, filled with lots of anxiety because I work for myself and there are lean times and there are overwhelming times. But as I get older and enter my almost 20th year of entrepreneurship, I keep telling myself that, you chose this. And this is part of the deal when you work for yourself, but it's such a gift and a journey.
It is. It's a roller coaster ride pretty much every day, but one so far I'm happy to be on as well. What's something curious about you when people learn it about you? They're like, whoa, didn't see that coming.
Well, in our Zoom life, people don't know that I'm 6'2", which is pretty tall for a woman. And I am a former athlete, and I I try to think like an athlete might think. I think there are so many similarities between leaders in business and elite athletes. And I really try to help people learn from what athletes and coaches do because they're pretty smart when it comes to this mental performance stuff.
Well, I knew you were tall because the first time I saw you, you were rocking the keynote stage in this event. And I was like, that's a powerful woman right there. So,
Oh, thank you.
and what drives your passion around this? What's your why? What's your story?
Oh my gosh, I live my why, Sally. I didn't always. I got my first mental illness diagnosis when I was 19. I got a diagnosis of cyclothymia, which is what they used to call bipolar 2, which I'm sure your listeners know about. And I was in a very deep clinical depression. I was a sophomore in college, and it was one of those depressions where you really can't function. My parents had to sort of take me home. And thus entered my life. I'm now 48 as someone who had to manage mental illness, right? It is like waking up and working out and brushing your teeth when you have mental illness. It's just a part of you and is a huge piece of your work. And I always knew this. I worked in the internet, the new internet back in the late 90s. And then I translated my love of online marketing and communications and campaigns to politics, my other true
Mm.
love. Worked in politics for many, many years, had my own business while managing mental illness. And it was when I was about 25 years old, I thought, I'd minored in psychology. I thought, I want to be a workplace therapist because this sucks. And I have no one to talk to. This was sort of like pre all this. We didn't talk about it. We had no mentors and started going to school at night and writing about work and why it sucked for a lot of people and how to make it better. But still continued my day job as a business owner, political consultant, issue advocacy consultant until 3 years ago when I sold my business and thought, now's my time. I'm going to do this work. I'm going to help leaders and organizations and teams get to know their mental health, talk about it, understand what a huge asset it is. And I'm just about to start writing my third book, and I
Ooh,
host my podcast, and I've written probably hundreds and hundreds of articles at this point. So,
that's very exciting. What's your third book about, or can you share yet?
yeah, my third book is about neurodivergent leadership.
Excellent. All right. Well, you'll keep me posted on
I
when that
sure
comes
will.
out. Well, let's go ahead and unpack that first tip. What did you mean by anxiety is a part of leadership? It comes with the job.
To me, this feels like common sense. And I think probably a lot of your listeners are like, yeah, duh. But the thing about anxiety is, as a word, we have a complex relationship with it, right? We don't welcome in anxiety. And in leadership circles, anxiety is often seen as a weakness, not a very natural human emotion. And so most leaders would rather cop to cheating on their taxes than saying that they're anxious.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why that's true, but I find even today, that's true, except for the very brave leaders who I work with and you work with and come on my show. Anxiety is a part of life. It's a natural and necessary part of life. It can definitely go too far. And you and I both know that too, but the fear of uncertainty, the questioning into the future, the worry, the weight of expectations is part of what it means to learn and grow and lead in a really challenging world. And when leaders embrace it, they can learn so much.
I often have reframed it for myself because basically your body revs up and revs down. So
Mm.
you can put a spin on that any way you want. And I think when my hands start getting sweaty and my heart starts going, I say, "Oh, I'm getting excited because something really important is right before me, and that's my body getting me really, really focused on whatever it is that I'm supposed to do right now." And then the other way that I talk myself through it is I say, pretty much everything that could possibly have gone wrong has already gone wrong. And you've lived through it and you've learned from it. And so this is going to be great. What are we going to learn here?
Yeah.
Because yeah, that's one of the benefits of getting older is you
Mhm.
realize, oh my God, that did not kill me. I'm fine. Everything's fine. I learned some things. So that's just another helpful way to reframe, I think, anxiety and fear. Or high stakes, I think, is another place where my heart rate goes up when something is super high stakes, like a really big presentation or a really big deliverable. And I'm like, boy, I hope they don't hate it. Whatever it is that I'm doing here, don't mess up. That's not helpful thinking. But saying, wow, high stakes, this is really important. Focus. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just keep.
absolutely. Coming back to athletes, right? Mindset, many athletes will reframe that performance anxiety into like, I love pressure. I love pressure. But I think there's another element in that anxiety isn't often a simple positive reframe.
Mm,
Anxiety sometimes shows up when there's no need to be anxious. Some of us anxious achievers, anxiety is our oxygen. Our negative thoughts motivate us, right? That worry motivates us. And rather than being told to cure yourself, I simply ask people, is it serving me? And if it is in some ways, great. And if it's not, then maybe I should think of a new way to be and get help and change, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
have a better relationship with my anxiety.
Yes. Yeah. I think about one of my thought patterns that I get into that's problematic is an overwhelming fear of letting people down in a big
Mhm.
way. And that is a very important motivator for me, but it can also get me stuck. So I have to manage that one pretty well. Like I have to say, you don't want to let Annette down because she's a really important partner. And so we really need to focus here. That's usually what I go back to. Take that energy that you're feeling right now and focus it because you
Give
don't
it
want
a
to let
job.
you give it a job to do, put
I
it to
say to
work.
people, that's what I say to people. Anxiety is like a dog chasing a ball. If you give it a
Perfect.
job, it will stop running around and nipping at your heels.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. All right, let's go on to the tip two. Learning how to manage difficult emotions is a strategic weapon.
It's a weapon. You know, our emotions obviously are hugely influential in our success. And we know why so-called positive emotions work for us. But the truth is that some of the emotions that we fear and try to avoid, especially anxiety, can also be super, super strategic, right? Again, if we're not letting it get overwhelming and out of control. And so the leaders that I work with and myself, right? And obviously all the literature says that when you have that sort of ability to notice an emotion, to name it, and to sort of interrogate it, you develop tremendous skill, right? You develop self-awareness. You develop the ability to make good decisions, right? You have fluency. You're not as self-absorbed. You get empathy as well. Instead, though, and also, as we just talked about, the motivational aspects of anxiety are huge, right? I'm just going to go for this. This matters to me. But oftentimes, when we get really uncomfortable emotions, especially at work, we feel anxiety, we feel fear, we feel anger. We don't feel like we're allowed to really feel those emotions. What do? We act them out. We feel anxious, so we micromanage and drive everyone nuts because we're all up in their face instead of saying, okay, I know I get anxious around deadlines like this. I have a tendency to micromanage and email everyone and call them all the time, but maybe I'm not going to do that now, you know? And so there's so much power in developing, as Susan David would say, that emotional agility, but most importantly, the courage to not just sweep our anxiety under the rug, act it out, drink it away, shop it away, eat it away, all the things that we do to try to make ourselves not feel these emotions.
It's probably either when you don't have the awareness and the emotional intelligence, you're either acting it out or you're escaping and avoiding, which is what you just listed, all the ways
Yeah,
that we
or
try to,
both.
yeah, push it down and move it aside when it's really, it's our body's little alarm system. If it's, anger, I need to go resolve a conflict with someone that I care about, and it's anxiety, I need to figure out why this is producing all these swirly thoughts for myself. What do I need to do to shift that? And so on and so forth. So
Yeah.
I like, again, just saying it is my body's wisdom. My body is trying to
Mhm.
tell me something important here. What is it?
Emma Seppala at Yale has a great quote. She says, emotions are energy in motion.
That's right.
And when we let them flow, they resolve. When we keep them bottled up, which we're taught to do, especially the ones that are bad, it doesn't serve anyone.
When you were listing the kinds of things that people who are trying to navigate these difficult emotions do successfully, you said the word interrogate. What did you mean by that word?
I love the word. I mean, I know we think of interrogate, we think of like a hostage cell, I like interrogate because it's asking tough questions, right? It's really looking at your anxiety. Say for example, you have a tremendous case of imposter feelings. You've been promoted, you're about to show up at your new job, and you can't get out of your car, right? You just can't do it. You don't belong there. Why'd they hire me? That's your anxiety really taking over. And interrogating that looks like, okay, well, maybe they made a mistake hiring you. What are you going to do? You're going to resign? Or, it's funny. Yeah, okay, maybe they made a mistake hiring you, but like, look at your sales numbers, look at your references, get some external proof. And so it's not letting anxiety win, it's having a conversation. And maybe anxiety's right. Sometimes anxiety's right, but it's really, I think, taking the power away, the fangs out of the anxiety, and then trying to learn from it. And then sometimes saying, go away. You're not helpful right now.
That's right. Yeah, just put it on trial. Like, what's the evidence for this
Totally.
thing that you're thinking about? What's not? Can we think about something in a different? Can we even just moderate the thought slightly so that
Right.
we can have a little bit more objectivity in it? Awesome. Well,
Like
I'm going
maybe
to
you're
do
not a total failure, right? Like, okay,
right.
maybe you're not a total, that's kind of.
Or, I'm challenged by this moment. I'm struggling with this. What am I learning here is usually one that I came back for. Like, okay, what am I supposed to learn here? What am I learning here? Because that's the give the dog a ball. Go figure that
Right.
out. What am I learning here? Okay, come back when you have an answer. Which is so funny because I have a puppy right now, and I have to do wind sprints with him in the yard with a ball for like 10 minutes at a time, 4 times a day, or he's just climbing all over me all day. So the image of him going to chase the ball and coming back all
Oh,
excited
I
is
love
something that's sticking with me for sure.
Yeah. Got to tire him
So
out.
I know. Yeah, same with anxiety. Go fetch that ball, go fetch that ball. So I got to do a little bit of a recap and then I got to come back to you for final thoughts. So if you're just tuning in, I'm here with Morra Aarons-Mele and we are talking about using some difficult emotions as a superpower in your leadership. And this is a really important way to think about it because whether you like it or not, we all have difficult emotions that we wrestle with. The difference is if you're aware of that and what it's trying to teach you, like a dog with a ball, or if you're trying to push it away or act it out. And she's given us some really important tools of how to think about this as a superpower, as a strategic weapon in your leadership when you can really understand what they're trying to teach you. So Mara, what is the last thing that you want to make sure that our listeners walk away with? What is your main take-home message?
I want them to think about if their greatest gifts in their leadership, in their career, might actually lie in the same things that they've been struggling with their whole lives, that other people have said is wrong with them, that they say is wrong with them, that they've tried to cure or get rid of. My new book is called Hidden Superpowers, and I work with leaders who have mental illness, who are neurodivergent, who have figured out, oh my God, this thing that is, quote, wrong with me is actually how I got here. And I need to honor it, but of course, learn to manage it as well.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Thank you so much, Mara. If people want to connect with you, hear your podcast, get your books, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Well, if you want to read The Anxious Achiever or listen to the podcast of the same name, just Google The Anxious Achiever, wherever you get your books, wherever you listen to your podcast. Please connect with me on LinkedIn, Morra Aarons-Mele. I'm really active on LinkedIn and I will write you back.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time, for your passion, for your angle on this. It's just so refreshing and empowering and just inspiring. So thank you for your time and all the work that you're doing in the space. I'm hoping that our paths continue to cross for a long time. Thank you to the full team behind all of this moment here that makes this happen. Dave and Mitchell and Chase and Whitney and Elias and many, many more on your team, on my team that pulled together to get this eventually into all of your ears. And thank you to all the listeners who prioritize this podcast as part of your day of personal growth and where you want to influence your team. So in closing, working minds work well together. There's lots we can learn from each other to improve the well-being of our workplaces. Until we meet again, take care.